Morning. Ken Kimmel. I'm a high school teacher here at Louisville Collegiate, just in case you didn't know. I'm honored to be asked to introduce Jeremy. Getting to know Jeremy has been a long and winding road. From classes, don't like to laugh too much here, but from classes to becoming part of my family. Our long dinner table conversations about social and political issues, our shared experiences about the weirdest street foods you can find in the inner cities of China. I've never had quite the same special relationship as the one I have with him. With the incredible highs and inevitable lows, Jeremy and I have shared much over the last 4 years. I'm going to miss those experiences, Jeremy. It's become part of who I am. So, basically, by the way, in all of our conversations, Jeremy has never, ever, no exaggeration, said a negative thing about anyone on this continent. He is so positive about you folks in this school. Jeremy and I have had many enjoyable experiences over the years, haven't we? I'll tell you about one. It's not all, but this is one. On our car rides home from school, Jeremy plays sonatas, symphonies, nocturnes, and all those other ones that I'm not sure of on the car radio. And while listening, Jeremy explained so much about each piece, the history and music, and the composers, what they were feeling, what they were going through. This identity. And I'm so thrilled about how this thirst for music gives him purpose and life meaning that so many of us continue to search for. This is something we can all reflect on as we look to enrich our lives. I've enjoyed cheering Jeremy on as he slowly but steadily moves towards what the Stoics would say is the good life. Ladies and gentlemen, I present Jeremy.
Good morning. As many of you may already know, I am an international student. Growing up in China for the first 14 years of my life is a major determining factor of who I am today. I was born in an ordinary Chinese household, went to ordinary schools in China, ate ordinary Chinese food, made friends with ordinary Chinese people, lived an ordinary kid's life in China. Now, you might be wondering, what does the life of an ordinary kid in China mean? First of all, it means I have at least one rigorous parent, like 90% of kids my age. Second of all, it means I'm an only child, like 90% of kids of my generation at that time. If you combine these two conditions, it might become easier for you to picture the ordinary life of roughly 80% of Chinese kids, assuming the two conditions are independent of each other. My mom devoted almost all of her focus to my education. When I was 5.5 years old, I started learning the piano, which I will expand on later. In order for me to possess advanced knowledge in mathematics, during the summer before I became a first grader, I started attending private educational institutions outside of school for additional advanced math classes. A lot of my peers attended such extracurricular academic courses. However, unlike most parents, my mom would spend her leisure time sitting next to me, previewing future content areas in the math textbook that the institution used, chapter by chapter. What if I finished previewing this semester's curriculum while I would start previewing the next semester's curriculum? My mom had always been a part of this excruciating journey until I hit third grade, when the math I was learning outside of school became beyond her comprehension. And I'm not kidding when I say that 90% of you would not be able to do the math problems that I was doing in third grade. Even though my mom could no longer assist me, I was still forced to preview future contents that I would learn in that math class. Also, when I was in 3rd grade, I guess my mom felt that one actual math course and practicing piano daily wasn't enough to keep me busy, so I started taking a coding class at that same institution. It turned out that the coding classes became my safe space to play video games. Eventually leading to me quitting the coding class in 5th grade when my mom finally started to feel like I was spending too much time on coding. The coding classes didn't end well in that it failed to develop my interest in programming. It did develop my interest in gaming. Nevertheless, my grind in the world of mathematics never stopped. I essentially ended up taking a whole separate set of advanced math curriculum during my 6 years of lower school. The formidable amount of training in math, logical thinking, and problem-solving skills had essentially determined my major in college and even my career path in the future. Most people peak as an athlete either in high school, in college, or in their 20s. However, I peaked as an athlete in lower school. There were approximately 250 kids in each grade in my lower school. In China, every school holds an annual track and field meet in which students within the school compete against their peers in the same grade level. While I was in 1st grade, known as the kid who likes to chase around other kids, my advisor urged me to compete in the sprint events. Consequently, I won 1st place in both the 60-meter dash and 100-meter dash. That's when I realized that I had a talent for sprinting, which I probably got from my dad since he's a former amateur soccer player, although I practically know nothing about soccer. For the following 3 years, I competed in various sprint events ranging from 100-meter dash to 400-meter dash, and I dominated every single event that I went to, including a 400-meter performance in which I dusted the 2nd place by 8 seconds. Consequently, I was invited to join the track team in 3rd grade, although my mom did not let me participate in any track practices. I ended up going to the annual track and field meet in my city and finished 4th in the 60-meter dash. While my track career was seemingly going effortlessly well, things took a turn faster than I could ever imagine. Due to lack of training and the fact that some kids started to hit puberty while I didn't, my reign on the track came to an end in 5th grade. 2 years later, going to a middle school with more than 2,000 students, I was no longer competitive in the realm of sprint. However, track had influenced me in a multitude of ways. It had taught me that talent could only take you so far, that hard work is the key to success. It gave me a competitive nature that motivates me to achieve my goals. It shaped me into a person that greatly admires athletes. In fact, my admiration for Woodford came first from his superb basketball skills. And my passion for track continues to this date. Thanks to Collegiate, I was able to continue my track career by joining the track team last spring, and for the first time I ever received proper training as a track athlete. Now, many of you may already know my passion for piano. Yes, whenever I see a piano or hear a piano, my inner nerd would start to jump up and down, urging me to make my way to the piano. However, the journey was never all smooth sailing. I still don't know why my mom wanted me to learn piano. Well, actually I do know. It was for bragging rights. Neither of us foresaw the fact that just like any ordinary kid, I did not like practicing the piano at all. However, under my mom's watch, I was forced to practice at least 2 hours of piano every day. I did not enjoy or understand the music I was playing. Practicing the piano became my biggest fear. In order to adapt, whenever I practiced the piano, I essentially turned into a robot. There was no connection whatsoever between me and the music I was playing. This painful and grotesque state lasted for 6 years. Until one day when I was in 5th grade, I heard Chopin's Fantasy Impromptu for the first time ever in a concert that I attended. This piece is the first piece of classical music that I became obsessed with, and it completely changed my attitude towards piano. Not long after would I start to learn this piece, and also for the first time ever, I would practice the piano voluntarily. Something inside me also changed. I started to appreciate the beauty of not just that one piece, but classical music in general. When I came to the United States, Collegiate provided a perfect environment for my girls as a pianist with all the fancy pianos and the leisure time that I finally had. Living with Woodford for 1 year in the midst of COVID only enhanced that experience, as I would live on Woodford's baby grand and try to sight read a new piece every other day. Sometimes spending hours digging into a super long piece. My transformation from an absolute hater to an absolute lover for piano is something that I couldn't wrap my head around. But I guess the major takeaway would be that no one is born with a given passion. The more sacrifices you make, the luckier you are at finding your passion. Thank you.
Our second speaker today is Mac Bowden. Mac will be introduced by his father, Dale Bowden.
Good morning. Good morning. So I went online and watched several senior speeches to get an idea of what introductions were like, and I saw many brilliant, heartfelt, emotional introductions. This will not be one of those. As the father of 3 collegiate boys, I'm delighted that Mac, and only Mac, asked me to introduce him, which has significantly enhanced his position in my will. In seriousness, in all seriousness, this is a fun rite of passage for collegiate seniors, and I'm honored to participate. To begin with, Mac is a twin, and twins are weird. Mac came home from their first day at JK at Collegiate and asked, "What is a twin?" We'd always referred to them as the boys. We never referred to them as a twin. They didn't know what it was. And twins wig people out. We're constantly asked, how do you tell them apart? I mean, really. Well, you start at the top with one has red hair and the other. So, as I've thought about how to introduce Mac, I've reflected on several of the core characteristics that describe Mac. I've narrowed them down to 3 that became apparent when Mac was very young. Number 1, stealth-like. He was quick to learn that with 2 brothers, if he would lay low, chances of him getting caught doing something he shouldn't were nil. Gus was loud and dramatic, while Pi was happy to get up in your grill and argue for the sheer sport of arguing. Mac took note and did the opposite. My mother always teased Cece and I that while our attention was drawn to Gus or Pi, Mac was in the corner getting away with murder. So from an early age, Mac has keenly developed the ability to avoid detection. Number 2, determination. We moved from August Avenue, right around the corner from Collegiate, to a house in the suburbs with a big driveway. Mac and Pi were about 4 years old, and one of the first things we did was get bicycles for everyone. Pi started first. I pushed him a couple of times. He got it. He was gone. I pushed Mac all afternoon, and he didn't quite get it. However, every morning, before everybody else got up but me, Mac was in the driveway teaching himself how to ride the bike, which he ultimately nailed. Number 3, work ethic. We have a couple of family rules. One is anyone can call a family meeting at any time and we all must attend. Another one is on the weekends, everyone must help do yard work. We have a big yard that requires lots of attention. One summer day, after a couple hours of yard work, Mac, clearly frustrated, called a family meeting. So we were all sweaty and grimy and dirty and tired, but we met at the kitchen table. Mac, meanwhile, had gone to his bedroom, put on a clean golf shirt, a bow tie, a blue blazer. He kept his short pants on, but he put on his dress shoes. He convinced Pi to put on a blazer with a clip-on tie to his t-shirt, and this was a serious meeting. Now, unfortunately, there isn't a video opportunity here, but we do have evidence of this meeting that I will gladly pass around. Mac had a pad of paper with a list of complaints and demands around the weekend yard work that culminated in a new family policy. Going forward, he and his brothers were only required to work 1 hour for free And if they worked beyond that, they got paid. Interestingly, Mac was the only one that ever worked beyond 1 hour. Cece and I were convinced that they were all going to work for Mac one day. So in conclusion, Mac's stealth-like determination and work ethic characteristics have served him well at Collegiate, and I suspect will serve him well going forward. With great pleasure and pride, please allow me to introduce Charles McClure, a.k.a. Mac.
Good morning. Approximately 6,673 days ago, or 18 years and 99 days ago, a great thing happened. My family was blessed with a beautiful baby boy. With fiery red hair already sprouting on his head, it was quite obvious that this adorable young boy was ready to conquer the world. He captured the eyes of all his relatives, and for a few short moments, he attracted the attention of all who were blessed with the opportunity to see him. However, his spotlight was soon robbed when not even 3 minutes after he was born, something crazy happened. The birth of his little baby brother. My little brother Pi is a follower, and quite a good one, I might add. His consistency is almost unbeatable, as for the past 6,673 days, he has been my shadow. Nothing more, nothing less. It seems that wherever I went, he followed closely behind, and whatever I did, he tried his best to mirror. Yet his mimics had never touched my glorious triumphs. To prove his attraction to my footsteps and actions, I have written a handful of examples that celebrate my little brother being a follower. First, let me take you back almost 18 years ago in a bright red room on Longest Avenue that contained not one, but two babies. While one of them was sleeping soundly through the night, his little baby brother could not stand to be away from him, and therefore tried his best to join his companion in the crib adjacent. This was not a good idea. Mere seconds later, the sound of a booming crash erupted from the nursery, in which one baby slept and the other wailed, cried, and screamed on the cold, hard ground. After further inspection by my parents, my baby brother had attempted to climb his way out of his crib into mine. I won't be the first to say it, but what a stupid, stupid idea. Boy, am I glad that his attempt failed. I would not have been able to withstand sharing a crib with a squirmy, immature delinquent like me. As you can see, my little Pi's desire to always follow me and be with me is indeed serious. And unbeknown to most, it did not end with the traumatic experience of falling out of the crib. Pi's desire to accompany me continued through the progression of our childhood. At the ripe age of about 5 or 6, his desire to be just like me led him to go through the motions of obtaining an arm injury similar to the one I had from a tricycle accident a short time before. This strong sensation to follow me led him to be pushed off the monkey bars by none other than Brooks Barnum. However, I believe that Pi slipped and simply blamed the closest person to him for his mishap. I also believe that in reality, Pi didn't slip, but rather purposely sabotaged his own arm in an attempt to mimic me. His adoration of me, his desire to follow my lead, pushed him to deliberately make himself vulnerable and tarnish the good name of Miss Barnum. While Brooks's good name has never been able to undo the damage, Pi's arm did, and did so in speedy fashion. It was through this experience that my little brother solidified the narrative that he wanted to be just like me and was willing to risk whatever he could in order to achieve his impossible goal. This trend continued through our teenage years, but there was a time where I believed that I had finally escaped my shadow. My younger brother and I had begun to separate as we had found interests that made us different from one another. Or more so, he finally found interests that were not the same as mine. As I began to build a more structured work ethic and develop unique and strenuous life skills, I began to take interest in other things, such as ex-girlfriends, Chester's Hot Cheetos, and on the rare occasion, golf. Just as I was experiencing a sense of freedom, my little brother came crawling back in search of a new job. During my grace period, I had begun working at Le Relais and was truly making the most of it. My brother, missing me terribly, found a way to sneak back into my life. This came after his job with a restaurant called the Pine Room was terminated, or in other words, he was fired. his efforts to work at McDonald's didn't make it past the application stage, and so he set his sights back on me. My little brother was my shadow, and once again became my doppelganger. Yes, my little baby brother is my shadow, and I have severely detested that for the past 6,673 days. But in a certain light, one's shadow is a beautiful thing to look at because it pictures them in a strong, old-fashioned, and is consistently present. In no way am I calling pie beautiful. Ew. No, gross, that's weird. But I'm alluding to the fact that sometimes I have enjoyed his presence more than anyone else's. In our times of grief, fear, anger, or even our times where we were ecstatic, happy, in the best of moods, I've always found comfort in knowing that my shadow is there. Although he's a constant pain in my rear, Pi is my best friend and has been a terrific person to grow up with. When I have needed him or he needed me, we have always been there for one another, and there are few things that I appreciate more in my life than my baby brother. So with that being said, if we don't end up on the same campus next fall, I will dearly miss him and will sincerely miss his attempts at trying to be me. Now this is getting a little too lovey-dovey for my taste, so I'll just end it with a thank you to my little baby brother.
Our third speaker today is Jack Palmer. Jack will be introduced by his papa, David Palmer.
I wanted to stick this up on the stage, but I'll just drop it for now. Good morning, Dr. McRae. Gay Han, Amazons, and Titans. What a rare opportunity for me to be inside Louisville Collegiate and to be with Jack and all of you. Most of you, or some of you, have known Jack for nearly 4 academic years. So I want you to tell me about Jack. I want you to think about Jack and to think about the one word that you would use to describe Jack to someone who doesn't know him. But not yet. Not until you close your eyes. Really, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for about 10 seconds and think of Jack in that one word. I will count quietly to myself. Okay, go. Okay, 2 weeks ago I asked Jack's sister for their one word and one of his cousins. But I'd rather hear your words first. Are there 2 or 3 of you? Answer. I'm writing these down. Anyone else?
Indiana.
Maybe Indiana, but I think not any longer. Anyone else? Last person?
I said Goofy.
Goofy. Okay, the three relatives' words were happy, slick, and authentic. You want to know what my one word is for your happy, slick, authentic, handsome, goofy classmate? Brave. Now, some of you might think, what? Jack Brave? I have 3 illustrations. Jack played nearly a dozen different sports as a youngster, but he played baseball the longest. He played on many teams and several travel teams, competing against some pretty good level players around Kentucky and Indiana. He started as an outfielder, but he gravitated to the position of catcher. He always wore number 19. As a catcher, you wore lots of padding, a heavy face mask, the leather sticking to his sticky little face on hot summer days, crouched behind hitters who were swinging metal bats. And his job as catcher was to protect the plate. Don't let anyone score. But the job of the other team and their runners was to run full speed from third base to home, plow into the catcher, feet first, head first, whatever it took to send the catcher sprawling and to dislodge the ball. Jack ate a lot of dust. Summer after blazing summer. What a brave kid. Secondly, some of you have been here at Collegiate since elementary school, and I suspect that might be most of you or many of you. Not so for Jack. He spent his first 9 years of school across the wide Ohio River in southern Indiana. Instead of a casual 15-minute ride through the countryside to join his friends of elementary and middle school at Floyd Central, he chose a half-an-hour drive on Interstate 64 to be here with all of you, even though he would be a newbie surrounded by all of you who know each other so well. That was a brave step. Lastly, tomorrow Jack puts on, weather dependent, a different kind of padding to join his friends in representing Collegiate as you guys swing 5-foot sticks in the middle of each other and cow players. Flinging a hard ball into a small net. I doubt that Jack, prior to joining Collegiate 4 brief years ago, had ever watched a soccer game or held a stick in his hand. I haven't seen a game live. I hope to tomorrow night. I've watched several videos, and it seems to me like lacrosse is a rough game. And that playing takes guts. I am very proud to introduce you to number 32, my very brave grandson.
Good morning. I was once told that I used to be irrelevant. I had never thought of this before, as I had always pictured myself to be someone who's friends with everyone and just really in the mix with everything that's going on. But thinking about it now and looking back at myself a few years ago, I too can agree that I truly was irrelevant. I'd assume that many of you know this intriguing secret of mine, but I'm sure there's a couple folks in the crowd who don't. And instead of beating around the bush, I feel it's best that I tell the rest of you right now. And after my grandfather's introduction, all of you know, but I live in Indiana. Although I was born in Louisville, Little Floyd's not Indiana has always been home to me. And don't get me wrong, Indiana is a great place that none of you should ever have to go to. I came to Collegiate in fall of my freshman year, and the transition was pretty tough for me. I switched from a big public school with nearly 2,000 students, and everything about Collegiate was different. I went from being surrounded by kids who wore camo and drove diesel trucks to kids who wear vineyard vines and golden goose. Although some, or most people would say that I fit in with this crowd more than the other, the difficulty in my change wasn't particularly due to the difference in people. I vividly remember the day I shadowed Collegiate. On December 6, 2018, I took the day off school for my visit and told my friends back home that I was sick and wouldn't be there that day. I was dropped off at the admissions house and spoke to Ms. Sadek, then sat down in Mr. Carr's freshman bio class. He handed me a worksheet that they were working on, and I did not understand it at all. But that's no surprise, because I took it through a class the next year and didn't understand it then either. I was then passed to my future friend, Matt Carter, and headed to Senor Hallbaker's Spanish class. After that, I talked to some students about what Collegiate was like, and I was approached by a freshman girl that I don't remember the name of. But what I do remember is what she told me. And I quote, "You are so cute. You should definitely come here." I think I committed to Collegiate on the spot. It actually took a lot of convincing from my parents, but I eventually enrolled in Collegiate's class in 2023 for the fall semester. Wait, I take that back. I was forced against my will. I'm not someone who loves big changes, and I felt that the group of friends I had at the time were irreplaceable. Tears were shed, arguments took place, and nothing changed. Although I knew I'd be going to a new school the next year, it took me to the last week of 8th grade to tell my friends that I wouldn't be coming back to my good old Indiana school. I spent all summer hanging out with my friends and figured that nothing would change with me going to a different school. But I was wrong. As the school year progressed, I stopped hanging out with the people I once claimed to be my best friends. The sad thing is, I never stopped asking to hang out with them. They just stopped answering. It sounds corny to say that the hardest part of my life was when I wasn't getting invited to my friends' houses anymore, but that's not far from the truth. I hadn't gotten close enough with the people from Collegiate for them to invite me over, but my Indiana friends figured that I had no interest in hanging out on that side of the river anymore. This was my peak irrelevancy. As the school year progressed, I stopped talking to my old friends and focused on the kids I went to school with. I got closer with the Bowden Bros, Jackson Brew, and others that played on the JVB basketball team. When I finally felt that my Indiana citizenship wouldn't affect my friendships, I was soon proven wrong. One day, while in the locker room before practice, I put on my shorts and shirt and was tying my shoes on the bench. To my disdain, I received a nasty look from my semi-new friend, Stuart Stites, shortly before hearing it. "Jack, you aren't even from Louisville. Why are you wearing a Jack Harlow t-shirt?" I was crushed. An artist I had bonded over with my sister since 2017 was soon unacceptable for me to support. I brushed it off, wondering if I had to choose making friends over listening to Jack Harlow. Shortly after, COVID hit, and I don't remember much from the 2-year period between then and junior year. But I do remember that it made it a lot more difficult for me to continue creating friendships in Louisville. I'd already been kicked out of my old friend group, but hadn't yet adapted to my new one in school. As some were still considering me irrelevant at this time, I knew what I had to do in order to put my name out there. For my birthday, I rented a limousine and took the boys up to Cincinnati to see a Reds game in the suite. They all loved it, and I think Pi had the most fun out of everyone due to the fact that he got a foul ball, took his shirt off, and started waving it around over his head. At this point, I had settled nicely into my friend group and didn't even think about the friends I used to have. But I still felt that I hadn't reached relevant status. That is, until a TikTok account named @LouCollegiateBattles posted a video, including myself and fellow classmate Amber Mustafich, comparing our stats and seeing who would win in a battle. Although I lost in categories like speed, agility, and IQ, I somehow managed to pull out the victory over Amber. Not only did this video reach the collegiate community, it surpassed over 100,000 views on TikTok. I then realized what I had just done. I was irrelevant no longer. Everyone knew my name. All jokes aside, junior year was definitely the best year of my life up to that point. COVID died down and I got my driver's license, which made traveling across the river to hang out with friends a lot easier. I formed relationships with kids in other grades as well, which made it seem like my relevancy was finally dying off. I even met Jack Harlow. Take that story. But most importantly, I became closer with the people in my own grade. I finally felt that I had fit into my friend group enough to not be judged by my Indiana interests. Now, I feel as though I'm in a better place than I've ever been before. The group of friends and people surrounding me are some of the best people I've ever met, and I wouldn't want anyone else by my side. My change in school and friend groups made me more confident to act outside my comfort zone and reach out to new people. To anyone who's having trouble adapting to a new environment, know that there's always a place for you in any setting, but you have to work for it. No matter how irrelevant you feel, there are always people willing to take you under their arm if you too can be a good friend. Thank you.